How do you think the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua fight plays out?
I don't know. I want to make sure. I believe it once I see him in the ring.
If Paul starts his boxing career earlier, could Jake Paul have been a champion?
Is it possible?
The neon lights of Miami's Casa Center had barely stopped flickering when a collective realization hit the boxing world like a freight train. On December 19th, 2025, the era of the social media disruptor didn't just stumble. It was systematically dismantled and left in pieces on a canvas stained with very real blood. Watching from the front row was Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet, a figure whose presence alone usually commands the oxygen in any room. But as Anthony Joshua stood over a crumpled Jake Paul, Tyson's expression wasn't one of shock. It was a complex,
I'll tell y'all the truth. I told y'all. They made Mike Tyson retract his statement on Twitter. They made him rewrite a post on top of deleting a post. Yeah, I told you that fight between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was rigged. I told you that. I don't care what Mike Tyson is saying now. He have to do that to secure his money. He's still an investment for future exit.
haunting cocktail of vindication and profound, soul-crushing regret. It was the look of a man who realized he'd traded a piece of his immortality for a corporate script, watching another man claim the glory that should have been his. The narrative surrounding Mike Tyson's 2024 encounter with Jake Paul has shifted from sports history to a cautionary tale of modern entertainment. For months, the rumors swirled, but the aftermath of the Joshua fight has turned those whispers into a deafening roar of truth. Tyson, at 58, was still a physical marvel, a powerhouse who even in his twilight years possessed a kind of touch of sleep power that most heavyweights can only dream of. Yet against Paul, we saw a version of Iron Mike that felt muffled, a legend pulling his punches, dancing a choreographed waltz that satisfied a Netflix contract but betrayed the spirit of the sport. We now know that the scripts were real, the retractions on social media, the deleted posts where Tyson nearly spoke his truth, the $20 million paycheck. It was,
and he talked about it. He said, I don't want to do an exhibition against Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah.
He said, I'm only doing real fights. And of course, I can't get up high in weight, but I'll fight him in a real fight at the weight that I'm at. But Jake Paul, I mean, as of right now, for what he's doing, it's good for what he's doing. But once he fights a real fighter, it's going to be bad.
all a business transaction. Tyson played his part, took the points loss, and secured the bag. But as he watched Anthony Joshua refuse to play along, the weight of that compromise clearly began to settle in his gut. When Anthony Joshua stepped into the ring that night in Miami, he wasn't there to participate in an event. He was there to perform an execution of a narrative. Unlike Tyson, who was bound by the invisible shackles of a prearranged outcome, Joshua was a man possessed by the need for legitimacy. He had spent his camp under the tutelage of Team Usyk, absorbing the cold, calculated wisdom of the camp that had mastered the heavyweight division. Joshua wasn't looking for a viral moment or a handshake at the final bell. He was looking to remind the world that there is a biological, visceral difference between a content creator who boxes and a heavyweight champion who destroys. The atmosphere in the arena was electric, a strange blend of the...
This fight was first announced. You had said something to the effect of this would end Jake Paul's career. After what you saw tonight, do you think that Jake should continue to box, or what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, look, I really take my hat off. I mean, we have to see if it is a broken jaw. Those injuries are very difficult to come back from. But as AJ said, like that last shot would have knocked out a lot of heavyweights. And I know he went down heavy, but you know he was conscious on the floor. And I thought his game plan, although obviously very negative early on, which it had to be, was smart at times. And there were times where he held his feet and let his hands go. You know, it was a very one-sided fight.
Influencer crowd, decked out in designer gear and clutching smartphones, and the old-school boxing purists who arrived with a sense of grim anticipation. Floyd Mayweather, the man with the 50-0 blueprint, had warned us years ago. Mayweather, a master of both the business and the brutality of boxing, had seen through the Jake Paul facade from the beginning. He had explicitly stated that the moment Paul stepped in with a real, live, elite fighter, the game would be over. Floyd didn't just predict a win. He predicted a dismantling. He understood the gap, that invisible chasm where timing, bone density, and decades of muscle memory reside. As the first bell rang, the contrast was immediate and jarring. In the early rounds, Jake Paul attempted to employ the same survival and poke strategy that served him against aging MMA stars and retired athletes. He moved laterally. He flicked out a jab, and he tried to maintain a distance that felt safe. For rounds 1, 2, and 3, the crowd saw a version of the fight they expected. The agile YouTuber trying to out-hustle the giant. Joshua, however, was a statue of patience.
Obviously, AJ is a fan of you, Mike Tyson. What do you think about the fight with him and Tyson Fury?
I'll tell you what, it's huge. There's something so big about it. And I think it's a big fight for British boxing, but not just that, it's a big fight globally. But we are in America, and I know Donald Trump wants to.
He wasn't frustrated. He was downloading data. He was watching the way Paul's feet reset, the way his shoulders dipped when he prepared to move, and the way his breathing became increasingly labored under the humid Miami lights. By the fourth round, the tension was suffocating. Joshua began to close the distance, not with wild flurries, but with a terrifying, rhythmic pressure. He was cutting off the ring, making it smaller with every step. Paul's bravado began to leak out of him. The showmanship, the tongue wagging, and the smiles were replaced by a wide-eyed realization of mortality. This wasn't a sparring session with a friend or a scripted exhibition with a legend. This was a 250-pound elite athlete who was done playing games. The fifth round was the beginning of the end. Joshua landed a sharp, concise hook that sent Paul to the canvas for the first time. The silence in the arena was deafening. This wasn't a flash knockdown where a fighter slips or gets caught off balance. This was the result of a physical superior asserting dominance. Paul climbed to his feet, but his legs were no longer his own. He was operating on pure adrenaline and the desperate hope that the bell would save him. In that moment, the cameras panned Tyson, whose eyes were fixed on the ring with a predatory intensity. He knew what was coming. He had seen this movie before, but this time, nobody was following a script. When the sixth round started, Joshua moved in for the kill. There was no hesitation, no holding back. To ensure the fight went the distance for the sponsors. He unleashed a right hand that seemed to carry the weight of every insult the boxing world had endured over the last 3 years of the influencer era. It was the same punch that had floored Klitschko, the same thunder that had silenced the doubters throughout his career. It landed flush on Paul's jaw with a sound that could be heard in the back of the arena. The collapse was total. Paul didn't just fall. He was disconnected from his senses. As the referee waved it off, the reality of the situation began to set in. This wasn't just a loss for Jake Paul. It was a total demolition of the idea that you can play at being a boxer at the highest level. The injuries were substantial and grim. A double fracture of the jaw, titanium plates, screws, and teeth lost. This was the price of admission to the world of elite heavyweight boxing. Paul's own admission of spitting blood and the sheer, agonizing pain of the recovery process served as a stark reminder that this sport is not a game. It is a pursuit that involves the very real risk of permanent physical alteration. Eddie Hearn, the man who had given Paul a professional start years ago, spoke with a chilling clarity in the post-fight interviews. He didn't celebrate Joshua's win with the usual promotional hype. Instead, he delivered a eulogy for the spectacle. He noted that while he gave Jake his debut, Joshua may have given him his last fight. Hearn pointed out the fundamental truth. Legitimate competition doesn't care about your followers, your engagement metrics, or your brand deals. When you step into the ring with a man like Joshua, your entire identity is stripped down to what you can endure and what you can dish out. Paul had reached the end of the road because he had finally run out of people who were willing to play along. This brings us back to the shadow of Mike Tyson. Why is he speaking now? Why is he admitting to the scripted nature of his own involvement? It's because the Joshua fight forced him to look in the mirror. Tyson is a man who built his life on the foundation of being the most feared human being on earth. To see Anthony Joshua take that mantle back, to see him do what Tyson was physically capable of doing but was contractually prohibited from doing, has ignited a fire of regret.